This is sort of the debut match, an exciting one to start off the summer split. One I really enjoy. We'll have DFM versus Sengoku, the return of the finals playoff match, and a pretty decent one at that, and one that we saw the series go both ways both times. Sengoku took it in the first best of 5. DFM were able to come back and secure it for finals. And this was one of those matches that, when you watched, it almost felt like... I believe, actually, even in finals, Sengoku took the first win, but then once DFM kind of had them beat, they were able to frustrate Sengoku a little bit, and then I remember the last 2 games were kind of repeat performances where Sengoku didn't feel like they had another answer, and the one they had wasn't working. So, in a best-of-1 format, does kind of lean back into Sengoku, although DFM, you know, the favorites, multi-time champions, top dogs of the LJL, still an opportunity here for Sengoku.
But it's always exciting seeing the rematch come back, right? There's been a few weeks, upwards of a month. I think this is one of the longest breaks we've had in League due to, obviously, lack of MSI. So it's who has prepared the most, who's ready for a new meta, and how do you adapt?
Right. What has your all-time been like? What is your boot camp? What are your scrims looking like? And as we go into the draft here, we'll start things up and we'll check who's going to be coming back. Now, Sengoku and DFM actually, some of the few teams that didn't have any roster changes, no coaching changes, so are both going to be the same teams we have seen before. It's that sort of, it's almost like grinding in an MMO. Who's been putting in the time, who's gotten the more yield for their time, as Sengoku banning away Karma, Yumi focusing that support position down in this ban phase.
So far, pretty standard bans, right? We see a lot of the poke options being taken off the board. The Syndra, just opponent laner, lots of potential to be a first pick.
Right, Aphelios as well, still well and popular in the LJL, is a very valid ban. And Varus, don't know if we'll be seeing on the Rift anytime soon. As
possibly never.
Yeah, definitely one of those picks that has worked his way into being a meta mainstay. Well, the last ban of DFM will decide kind of the options Sengoku has here. Wukong is the first thing that comes to mind as being left open. Ezreal as well, and it looks like Sengoku are immediately going to put priority again onto having the Ezreal for Yutomayashi.
Wukong is definitely possibly the strongest meta top laner left, but because there was no top lane focus in the bans, he also telegraphs your strategy a little bit, right? You need to dive forward, so you want to round out the rest of your comp in these early picks before you get your hands on a Wukong right away.
Right, kind of gives options, or you need to have keep some flex opportunities open. You know, you don't want to just all in, you know, hit full send on that button. And the one that's sort of interesting to me is the TF ban, and possibly looking at Pyrian a little bit directly with that one. But it's just sort of an interesting ban all around. Maybe some reads of some scrims in some back-end games that we're not privy to, but immediately locking in the Senna Pantheon coming in on
This
side
could be
of
the
DFM.
fasting bot lane, which, if this is a support Pantheon, that is going back to some old, more aggressive strategies with like the Talia bot, just transitioning that over to the Senna.
Right, and it is kind of a good option for having a lot of catch potential, as far as you have a point-and-click stun, as well as the Glacial Augment slow. Also throw in the Frozen Mallet there that we commonly see on Senna. Has a lot of ability to just keep people locked up, but Sengoku picking up the Zoe, kind of showing their hand a little bit towards that poke comp.
It doesn't have to go support. It can still go jungle or even mid lane against the Zoe. It's a pretty good matchup. So they do have options, or top lane, of course. They have a lot of options for where the Pantheon could go.
Right, and Saros looking at the Xerath here is definitely something that we've seen before. Actually, we did see in the finals games themselves, we did see Xerath being played along a lethality various, when you would typically see the, Zoe got a lot more ban attention at that time, and Xerath came up as a popular counter, or at least alternative option in the hands of DFM, and Seros not one to shy away from all-inning on an off-meta pick or an untraditional mid laner to the meta.
Right. As we said, poke is strong. Xerath is he's like a premier poke champion, even if he's not been the meta poke champion. So as you ban other poke tools like the Varus, like the Yuumi, you have to go a bit deeper to find those tools, and it's just about making them work with your comp.
Right, and Bard going to be banned away from the side of DFM. Bard definitely a champion that we've seen a decent bit of. While Sengoku has opportunities to pinch away at the jungle pool here if this Pantheon is not put into the jungle, but does kind of present opportunity to force it into the jungle if that's kind of their goal by taking away Elise. Jarvan possibly also going to be looked at by Sengoku. Will remain to be seen for now. Although on Sengoku's side of things, what is the support you want to tie in here, right? Yuumi is of course the ideal one. Karma also adds a lot to that poke power, but both of them taken off the table for now. What are some other supports we could be looking at for the side of Sengoku?
You almost really want to see where they send the Pantheon, because if you go something that's not strong enough in lane as a melee champ, Pantheon will bully you if you go support. And same thing, you've already taken the Karma and the Yuumi, which pair well with the Ezreal, off the board. If the Pantheon does end up going into the support role, it would be a really hard lane to fight out, and that's why I'm actually really happy with how DFM drafted here. They bought so much draft space, so to say, with their Pantheon pick.
Right, they retain a lot going into the second half of this draft, and Sengoku, now with Wukong already picked up by DFM, you have to find an option to neutralize the Wukong, but also find your support option and leave DFM the final say-so on what their last pick will be, whether this Pantheon is flexed to the jungle or not. As Nautilus is locked in, it looks like Sengoku are still going to take some time to think about what their top lane response is to the Wukong. We've seen a lot of Renekton's coming in, although Renekton doesn't exactly play very nice with the rest of Sengoku's idea of damage here.
Jace is open. It fits well. It would not be a good matchup into the Wukong, but it is a possibility.
Right, is a decent option available there, but Aatrox going to be an opportunity here, and kind of an interesting one. Sort of idea, I suppose it does present the idea that he can stick around with the Wukong, try and lock him into the side lanes. Opperman and Evi want to, just keep him duking it out with you on the opposite end of the map, and remove one of the better engage options on the side of DFM from the bottom end of from the team fight portion of the map, where you're trying to poke out with the Ezreal Zoe. You don't want anything sneaking in and getting a multi-ban knockup. Aatrox is sort of, it doesn't feel like a response to Wukong directly. It feels like Opperman says, I'll fight with him on the side lanes, pass me the Aatrox, I'll try to duke it out with him somewhere else.
Right, and it's really filling what the team needs. The Jace would be fine and it fits into their comp, but it would also leave them lacking a front line. And Aatrox offers that, as well as going forwards. Aatrox is one of the champions that can do both. He can peel semi-well. He's not a Maokai, but he can do it, and he runs forward really well.
Right, still buys a decent amount of space for his laners if they need it, so does present opportunities to him there. This will sort of be an interesting one, to be sure. Now, this is once again a point at which I sort of look at both comps, and the thing that immediately comes to mind is the lack in presence of Soraka in the LJL. This definitely feels like a point at which DFM could have drafted into a Soraka, or you know, you could retain that top lane counter for a Soraka option if you so choose, or play differently around that. But no, not very popular in the LJL. That being said, Sengoku, their game plan is set, and DFM aren't exactly spread in their options, but you have two dive characters, you have two more pokey, sustain characters in the Maokai to try and set up a bit of peel for it all. Being accelerated by the fasting Senna as well kind of puts him in the position that he can afford to be that solo tank, that solo peel option.
In my mind, I think the Xerath actually sticks out like a sore thumb here. I like where they started with it, but after drafting the Wukong and the Maokai and having the Pantheon, you want carries that can really move forward with those champions. These are champs that, again, great peel champs, but they're much better going forward, especially the Pantheon and Wukong. If you can start your engagement with Wukong Pantheon and then have Maokai be the follow-up, that's great engage. And a Xerath just won't follow that up properly, and neither will a Senna, who, like, the common Senna build is a pseudo-tank build. You almost can't do that into this comp. You need damage.
Right, and it sort of offers something a little odd in the sense that, you know, LeBlanc was an open option available to them if they wanted to all in on that style of comp. The Senna as well, like you said, is just doesn't seem to fit. Of course, could still go the lethality type build, but only makes you that much more susceptible to Zoe poke, to Ezreal poke, or to even being engaged on by the bot lane should Graves happen to show up around there.
Right, it feels like they had a plan when they drafted the Xerath, and then they chose to pivot that plan once they saw the second wave of bans, and the direction just feels like the Xerath got left out to dry.
Yeah, although that isn't to say that this is not the first time we've seen Seros kind of be in a position where he's picked for a lane matchup. He's picked something he likes playing into the opposing mid laner, so option is, or possibly was sort of a comfort pick for him, but definitely it sort of sticks out a bit. Xerath is kind of one of those champions that needs the comp to work with him if he wants to get full value, and maybe the team can play with him, but it's that same idea of that we've been talking about before. If the comp is all cohesive, it will work well together, but then you wonder, when you look at these kinds of matches, are the players going to be the one who are trying to suffice? Are the players going to choose a play style that suffices with the comp, or are you picking champions that suffice with the comp?
Right, and in my opinion, I think DFM needs to win early. They need to be snowballing very quickly because Sengoku is the ones with the scaling benefits. Sengoku can lose around the first two Drakes for that time span, and then after that point start gaining control of river and just make the river a shooting range for the Zoe, the Ezreal, even the Graves, and DFM will not be able to walk up. They need to roll early if they want it to get these advantages.
Right, it's that sort of part of the game that we see a lot, is these poke style comps. They're okay with giving away a couple objectives while they get some damage items. Then once they have them, they draw their line in the sand. They put up their fort, and they invite anyone to come into there, and will just free fire on any champion that tries to face check. The nice thing, of course, for DFM is you can send in with the Grand Skyfall. You can send in the Pantheon, and it's fairly undeniable, although it will just force them to kite back. DFM or Evi as well with the Invis to be able to try and get an engage there. These sort of issues is, are your carries going to be able to follow this up effectively? The ranges that you're put off at to allow the enemy team to go forward, as we might be having a little bit of a scrap here. Blank kites away with the E, who does get a little bit of bonus armor, but he's going very, very low. Flashes over the walls. Opperman's left out to dry now. Conquer is stacked up, but is it enough? Can't face check all three of them. That is going to be a first blood over to Steel. A great punish off the late invade there.
Just trying to commit way too much, way too early. They see you coming and you keep going. Can't.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting one there. You saw the ward, and they sort of make the call to commit onto it. Almost feels a little off in that sense, as Wukong, of course, if he takes the E first, does get the stacking passive off of that, which does give him a little bit, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit of extra armor and a little bit of extra attack speed, which makes him great in those kind of duking it out moments, as well as it didn't even feel like Pyrion was ready to be rotating for that one. It's an interesting situation to be sure, as now Steel, First Blood, will be able to full clear that side and can even take it back to get his full jungle item if he wants. Will remain to be seen. Meanwhile, on the top end of things, Opperman already had to burn his teleport just to get back to the first wave here.
I'd actually be curious to see it again, because in theory, there's a ton of damage there, right? You have an Aatrox Graves, you have the Zoe to block the Xerath, and if Aatrox hits his Qs, that's a ton of damage, but that's also all he offers. Pantheon has the stun. As you mentioned, Wukong, if he starts E, I'm not sure what he started, but either option, E or Q, would offer a lot in that early brawl. And
yeah, as well as just getting those Conqueror stacks early up. With Blank taking Phase Rush, the movement speed is not going to help you out, of course, if they're retreating, but DFM definitely issued the stand and fight order. Well, it looks like they are trying to check up on this red side, and Blank looking for an opportunity on the top side, but no camps to speak of. Steel did go for the back to purchase a jungle item, help out on his early clear speed with that one. Meanwhile, peeking his way onto the bottom side, trying to get the same amount of information over onto Sengoku's jungle. And this is sort of where Blank, you're looking at this bot lane, right? Has early push. Wave is going to be coming into you. DFM will need to be a little bit careful about that one. While in the mid lane, however, it looks like Sero's already snuck an early back off just by being able to throw spells at the wave. Burn it down really quickly, comes back with a second Doran's Ring after getting an early assist.
Definitely early push advantage to the Xerath, just by the nature of his spells.
Right, has those spells that can hit the whole lane, can throw them at decent range, and is winning this poke fight with Pyrion quite well, but of course did have that first back advantage, so was able to secure that one and holding the wave there so he can pick up all of the minions.
One interesting adaptation I want to see here, which maybe most people won't realize, if you're Zoe in solo queue, you often just take Electrocute because more damage, right?
Right.
But the spellbook paired with Nimbus Cloak is actually really good on Zoe, as well as it makes you just an incredibly hard dive target. But also, I believe Nimbus Cloak procs off of Zoe's W summoner spells.
It does, and that is definitely...
It's just going to be all over the place and so hard to catch.
Exactly that. Adds so much movement speed, and sort of... We talked about how the Xerath is going... Xerath potentially struggles with keeping up with the rest of his team. It's plenty of extra move speed to try and do exactly that with Pyrion if this Aatrox and Graves start moving forward, as Blank on the top side is going to be able to counter jungle a bit onto this Pantheon, but losing an Infernal Drake for it, as DFM are going to get first blood on the objectives.
Now, this does fit into what we said Sengoku's game plan is. They want to scale. They're not incredibly worried about the first two Drakes as long as they can sufficiently trade gold across the map. This is good, actually. I'm happy with this from Sengoku.
Right, sort of enters him into a little bit of a lull state, and we likely won't see a ton of action until at least Steel crests into that level 6, now delayed by losing out on those topside camps after Blank secures a number of those. Steel already working his way down to wait for his respawned camps, and the jungle is almost completely empty on both ends of it, but is one that's benefiting Blank. He will be able to back and get a hefty amount of gold as Evi looking for an opportunity here. The double knockup comes in. Opperman healing auto is not going to be enough. Evi with the flash auto Q will be able to get a solo kill onto the top side here.
Early solo kill just shows what his damage can do. Double knockup. So many dashes. He's all over you and you cannot get away.
Right, and the early heel cut that Evi was able to pick up, this all started off of that level, off that level 1 invade, where Opperman was forced down, and what did it cost him? It cost him his teleport. Evi took it back early on, grabbed an Executioner's Culling, teleported back to the lane. Not only are you fighting an upwards battle in terms of AD, but now you're fighting through heel cut. And Evi makes the most of it in showing that solo kill.
And Aatrox is a champ that really requires the sweet spots and his empowered auto to even get the healing. You get none of that when Wukong is flying all over you. He's getting 2 knockups per fight.
Right.
Like, he had no chance to drain through that and survive. He was just run down.
And in those moments, it's going to be where DFM can try and shine. Of course, it's down in CS a bit, so Opperman isn't too worried about the gold disadvantage. But it never feels good to get solo killed out like that, as Steel will be able to crest into his level 6, sneaking away with that chicken camp as Blank is immediately on to the Rift Herald here. And an understandable trade from the side of DFM. You've been losing a lot of pressure on the top side of the map here, even with that solo kill. That was a back advantage that ended up netting that for Evi. So it's not a huge opportunity lost, as now opportunity presents itself to the bot lane. Gang going very low here, but not going to be able to finish out on that one. Heals to keep both of them alive, and that's a lot of heals in that lane between the Maokai autos and Yutapon having healing on the Senna.
Right, a good E from Yutapon to just stop the fight, and here we go again.
Yeah, here we go once more, although this time Opperman is going to take the fight back. Not going to be able to land a number of these Qs. He has a jungler waiting in the wings. Smokescreen goes down, but the Dawning Shadow comes in as well. Opperman going very low. Evi will be the first to fall. Steel flashes forward. The W is good, and he will be able to get that one down. Conqueror fully stacked already as Blank looking for an opportunity. Steel kiting away with the E. Dashes forward. Has an opportunity. The bubble will miss, but will kind of zone away Steel from going for anything further. Pyrian still looking, but nothing he can get off of. Really just walking up to pick up an extra flash, and both mid laners kind of participating, kind of not, as Saros only has to commit his ultimate to have influence on that fight. Will be able to grab up an extra wave and a turret plate to try and punish Pyrian's roam there.
It's almost has to be a response from Sengoku. The top lane difference is starting to become massive. It only becomes worse as Wukong gains items at this point. The Aatrox can't contest, and you have to make the choice. Either let your top laner lose gracefully, or be there when the all-in happens to fight.
Right,
And
you know you have to be there for the counter fight. As soon as, and it was almost as soon as Evi had ulti again. And this was sort of a good tracking of cooldowns on the side of Sengoku. Is pretty much the second Evi had ulti again, he's fighting. And even now, without, he's going for a little bit of a trade. But you can see the difference the ultimate makes in those fights. So Evi not going to be getting the better end of that trade.
It takes sweet spots. If you can land sweet spots, Aatrox is still able to dish out damage.
You still get all that empowered damage, and now it looks like DFM looking for opportunity to secure themselves a Mountain Drake, trying to double up on these early Drakes. Ocean Soul or Cloud Soul will be on the menu, and it's definitely going to be a difference maker in the priority given over to this, but Sengoku happy to let this one slide for now. Blank could look for an opportunity with this Rift Herald, but is once again trying to just section off this top side of the map as DFM will grab themselves their second Drake.
Right. These are the two that we pointed out earlier that Sengoku would want to give up as a gimme, right? You want to scale up, you want items before you can really contest these objectives, because once you have those items, your objective control is just so much stronger.
Right, and while you're willing to give those up, it sort of gets a little bit dicey when you start looking at now an Ocean Soul on the menu. DFM, already 2 Drakes to his name, are closer to that Ocean Soul. However, spawning up that Rift Herald, just cashing in on a couple turret plates on the top side. Of course, you cannot hold that Rift Herald forever, but really just throwing it up there to let him know that they're still aggressive towards this top side. This is still the top side of the map they're playing towards. Evi looking for a little bit of a trade here. Opperman can't extend that one under turret, but the dive is coming through. Opperman is going to opt to tank here, but Blank actually ends up with aggro first. Beautifully done on that dive. While on the bottom side of things, Steel looking for an opportunity, zoning them away from the wave. A huge ultimate. Does a decent bit of damage. I think that was a W proc added on there. Chunks out Steel.
Both sides. Definitely, this whole situation definitely favors Sengoku. Furion gets time on turret. Top turret's about to go down, I believe, or it's got to be close. Yep.
Right, and that is going down here. First turret over to the top side and jungle of Sengoku. Will help kind of keep Opperman in things as far as the gold count is concerned after losing that first blood, although it did go to the jungler, still an assist, and then the solo kill over to Evi. Black Cleaver already completed, and so now he can kind of move around, he can follow Evi, and this is kind of what we talked about earlier, where if you want Opperman to be dueling it out with Evi and keeping him in a side lane, ending this lane phase and then just saying, Opperman, go chase your monkey as far as you can see him. Definitely kind of the idea that seems to be coming out here.
Right, and at most, what this has opened up is now Sengoku is probably in the space where they can contest objectives. Their carries aren't at full late game potential, but they are at a point where they can do plenty of damage from a safe distance. And the Graves and the Aatrox have had enough gold injected into them off that play that at least contesting and setting up good situations is possible now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sengoku start putting up more of a fight and just being a little less passive.
Right, and opening up, and it's a nice progression once you get that turret down, is you've opened up the top side of the map. Herald is going to be the next objective. That's something that you can look at as a team with a more open side of the map and say, okay, we're gonna dedicate resources for this. Ezreal taking a back here might just be indicative of that, though it looks like he will be staying for just a little bit longer. But it's sort of the idea of, as you scale into the positions where you want to be fighting for these objectives, you want to set up the best possible scenario at this middle point as Evi, looking for, once again, a fight with Opperman. A little bit of a grudge match here as Steel flies in onto Opperman. Stun is good, but the bubble lands. That is going to be him slept up, knocked down. Evi's the first one to fall down there as Blank, with the buckshot, is going to be able to take him down.
And there's the fight. We see the response from Sengoku. They're able to hold strong.
And this is actually a fight that Yatori Mayashi did not rotate for. Him and Gang were still on the bottom end of the map picking up CS. You send Senna over, that should be advantage over to you, but Evi possibly engaged on a little bit too early, and Opperman actually not kiting backwards into the ultimate from Pantheon is really what helped to make the difference in that one. Meanwhile, on the side of Sengoku, that's a Rift Herald picked up for you. That's another turret you can use, or you can help knock down. But even better than that, an opportunity presents itself so that you can use it, get in position for this Ocean Drake, and that can be something that you look at as far as moving into position that you can do exactly what you're talking about before with setting up the firing range. That the Zoe spell and Ezreal barrages will really make.
Whole game could break open in the next minute depending on how Sengoku fights around this Drake. They definitely don't want to give up Soul Point easily, but are they really in the position yet to completely take over the river? We'll see.
Definitely. And while maybe if you are Sengoku, you can be looking at, oh, well, we can hand over Soul Point if we just want to keep scaling in items, but it's an Ocean Soul, and the last thing you want is to pressure every smite to be that big of a difference. You have a 2-level advantage from Blank on the jungle, so stealing is a lot harder for Steel in this game, or at this point, and that's not something that you can retain the entire game if you are Blank. Meanwhile, Ocean Drake looks like DFM are going to be first onto it here. Ezreal is rotating up here, is a little cut off, but has position to kind of do damage where he needs to. NT looking for an engage opportunity. Evi is off to the top side, teleporting in now on a flank. Gang is going to be the one who starts things off here. W on to Blank. Steel walking forward, but he's going very, very low quickly. E goes down, but it's not enough. Gang and him are both going to be falling down there. Blank kiting away, trying to get away from this monkey who is just burning him down. Opperman comes over the wall. Multiple layers of CC onto him, but Evi dashes through. He's going to be going down in the end, but taking the jungler out with him might deter Sengoku from finishing off this Drake, but as it seems, DFM routed towards the top side, returning towards the mid lane. Sengoku have found a fight win and an objective in their hands.
The Ezreal just does so much from a safe position. He's split off from the rest of the team. Wukong doesn't want to just go on the Ezreal. That was a little close, but we're fine.
Definitely was a close one. Sarah's almost getting a lucky snipe.
Look at the Ezreal here. Look at how much damage Ezreal can do from this back of the pit position.
Yeah.
And Wukong has to ignore him.
Yeah, it was a lot of damage, and Evi could have gone all into him, but then what do you lose? And Evi makes the call that he wants to try and burst out the jungler. Evi, actually a little cheeky there, walks back up for an auto, could have disappeared into the bush. You know you had pink warded. Ends up actually costing him his life, and possibly wasn't the best play from him, but Drake secured, fight won, and now 300 or 3k gold advantage in your name. What does this mean for the rest of this game? Are you in the position that now your front line is big and brawly enough? Your carries do enough damage at the ranges that they need?
Right. We talked a lot earlier about scaling, but this isn't an Azir. This isn't a Silver. It's Zoe Ezreal. They're online. They're ready to go. They don't need to wait till maximum late game. They just needed a little bit of time over the Pantheon, Wukong, and I think they're pretty much there.
Definitely so, and Udapon already going in for that frozen mallet, as you see there. Will add a little bit of damage. NT thinking about going over the wall here, looking for an opportunity. The Rift Herald is going to get the charge off in the end. Blank rooted up, but nothing he can't get away from here. But it looks like Gang is opting in for the pursuit. The ultimate from Graves going to kick him back enough. He's able to get away from that one, narrowly avoiding that spell. Saros walking the razor's edge there between a lot of damage and 200 years of experience. But the mid lane turret will be going down in the end.
We see what Phase Rush can do for you. Blank just runs speed of light out from the engage. Totally safe.
And it adds a lot, especially because Phase Rush does have that slow reduction coming in. And the Merc Treads means he's a very hard target to lock down, even if you are a Frozen Mallet Senna, even if you have the Maokai Q slows. But as it stands right now, we'll just enjoy a bit longer of a lull state. Most likely won't be seeing a whole lot of action until this next dragon, as Opperman and Evi are just undeterred. They are looking for fights wherever they can find it. This time, Evi's the one with his team a little bit closer, as Opperman is doing anything he can for damage, but a little awkward of a fight. As I was trying to say that fights don't need to happen, Opperman says, nah, me and this Wukong are going at it.
I don't even think Opperman knew he was there. I think he was just checking with Q1 because he doesn't have the bush warded. He might have seen him, but that might have just been his ability checking the bush. But the collapse potential from DFM is huge.
Right, and you already had a member there, and now, speaking of collapse, they're all in onto Gang here. He is going to be going down. The knockup's onto Udapon there, but no follow-up opportunity available here, as they can somewhat siege down this turret if they so choose, but they're looking like they're going to take opportunity to poise around this Baron. They might just start it up, as it looks like they're rotating around here. Pings coming out from the side of DFM. Want to try to encroach onto this area, but that's where things get difficult if you are DFM, is walking in on this kind of a comp.
Right, Sengoku is just setting up the positions they need. They need river control. They need the wards as deep as possible. The deeper they are, the more dangerous their comp is. So they can set up both around river, but then transition that river control into sieging, being able to siege turrets. And that's where this comp just can completely shut down the other team.
Right, and shoving that lane into turret Gang, going to try and pick up that wave on the bottom side. TP still up, but with this Ocean Drake spawning up, it looks like Sengoku are going to take some time to get a couple resets in, refill on ward charges, as NT looking to try and set up more vision around this Ocean Drake. They have vision control, or at least a decent amount set up on the Baron side, but it's a little bit too risky to try and get that done. Zoe doesn't offer a whole lot of Baron damage, so of course the Ocean Drake is going to be the first target. And as you set up positioning to really start things up, Opperman going to be opening up the map a little bit further. It's 20 seconds to spawn on that Ocean Drake.
This is just going to be so difficult for DFM to walk into.
That it is. And when you think about it from DFM's perspective, what is the ideal scenario you're engaging on? How are you getting this fight started up? Of course, Evi did have a flank opportunity, but that thought's going to be held. Gang is going to be the one initiating things as Sengoku looks to try and kite this one out. Gang going very low as Opperman is just beating him down. Evi is going to eat the depth charge and force the W away from that one. NT is now with the engage. The dredge line finds a target, is forced to kite away. The route from Senna deters any further aggression as Pyrian looking for opportunities. Cleanse goes down as Pyrian can immediately get away from the stun on that one. Now, NT, one more dredge line, finds only a clone, can't find too much, but it looks like Sengoku are putting on a bit of a chase. The ulti snipe is good from the Ezreal, and now their HP bars are still full. They still have plenty of HP and damage to deter anyone who dare walk up to them.
That's exactly what River Control gains this team. Look at DFM's struggle. They want to move forward. Their champions want to engage, but they have a Xerath and a Senna who just have no way of following up damage in the same way. Ezreal and Zoe go completely untouched.
Yeah, and you can just see exactly what it means for Sengoku to be on this Drake at about 20 seconds early. All of the wards they have, they route DFM towards an ideal part of the river where you're coming from mid lane. You can take mid lane priority, you can try and knock down the Drake, but anytime you try and funnel into that objective, you're just witnessing just an onslaught. It turns into one of those old bullet hell games in the arcades where you're just trying to dodge anything you can. And unfortunately, there's only so much dodging you can do as Sengoku will grab themselves up a second Ocean Drake. And the sort of nice thing about Sengoku's position in this game is NT, speaking of positioning, is found out in a bad one as he's going to be able to try and stall out a little bit. Stone plate popped, but now Evi's on to Pyrian. No flash available. He will be getting burned down. Opperman is ulting in to try and find anything going, but Blank goes down next as Yutoto Miyashi trying to dodge out on both Seros ultis and the rest of the team. Evi goes forward, but eats the brunt of an Ezreal damage. Now Opperman is the one leading the charge. He kites away with the W. Steel has E to try and kite out the damage, but the depth charge has been held and locks up Steel. Beautifully done from NT there. Baits him forward. He thinks, well, there's no way that this Nautilus still has ultimate. I can kite out with the E. Wrong. He burns him down, keeps him there just long enough that Ezreal can come in with a little bit of extra damage, and ultimately turning that fight as a 3-for-2 favor of Sengoku.
Right. I think this game has gone completely away from DFM. That was 100% best case scenario. You want to catch Sengoku before they have the chance to set up in river while they are transitioning, and they still lose the fight. They just don't have the damage to 100-0 these characters fast enough before they get collapsed on.
Right, and as you can see, the Frozen Fist picked up by Yutoto Miyashi, it makes Evi diving the Ezreal that much harder, and it's not something you were really looking forward to if you're going to try and pose a dive threat. And now this is sort of getting into what we talked about at the beginning of this game of the draft sort of has a couple different champions in a couple different directions. How is Seros going to be getting value on a diving Evi, who now Evi diving on this Wukong is not enough? You know you can't kill this Ezreal on your own. You need somebody there to follow you up. Seros can't follow you up. Udapon can't follow you up. They're just, the ranges are too minimalized there. It's Udapon trying to walk in for vision around this Baron. Opperman off to the bottom side on his lonesome. Udapon going to get found out here. A spell landed, a stun in, but nothing that can be punished off too much. And a ton of ultis actually will just burn them down to about half HP. What I was going to
all the poke for just fighting for a small fraction of the enemy jungle.
Right, NT or Udapon walking forward, he is the support in that scenario. You know, you do have the warding trinket. Unfortunately, options don't come as plentiful as you might like. The other thing, there's two things that I look at immediately is, of course, you do have the fasting Senna, but look at the CS difference between Ezreal and Gang. Even though you are the Maokai that should be picking up the CS, that is almost 100 CS difference. And of course, it is hard, but this sort of came about from what we talked about earlier as far as who's rotating for fights. In the fights where Udapon is rotating and leaving Gang out to dry, you can't farm in the face of an Ezreal who is just going to poke you down and just kind of make your life miserable, and it ends up turning into almost 100 CS advantage for Yotorabayashi here.
Right, and in terms of late game resource allocation, you don't even want to put the gold on the Maokai. The result is he keeps falling behind, and what they're giving the gold to is the Xerath. We see the Xerath with the most CS on the team, but he doesn't, the damage he outputs is not enough to make up for how squishy his front line is, no matter how much they want to go forward.
That it is, and the front line is going to be tested here as NT finds a good dredge line. Stone plate popped up just to keep him up. And now Udapon kiting backwards, healing up. NT's going low as Evi's looking for a pattern of aggression onto him. But meanwhile, Opperman is taking the fight past him. Says Nautilus can wait. We'll go forward. We'll find two. And we'll find one more possibly. A good flash from Udapon avoids the sleepy trouble bubble. As now, Sengoku are going to try and take a turret. They have, the world is now their oyster, as they have two picked. Those are the two frontline carries of DFM. Sengoku can possibly look at an inhibitor here before they have to retreat for this Ocean Drake.
Right, and we're starting to see the full benefit of waiting past those two dragons, right? Giving the first two dragons to the other team. They will potentially have a 4-stacked Ocean Soul if the game even gets to that point. That's an insane amount of regeneration, and Xerath poke, they'll just laugh it off at that point.
Exactly that. That is something that is going to start being present on the minds of DFM, as you've lost 3 back-to-back Drakes, and unfortunately for the Drake spawns, it was 3 Ocean Drakes. As they push into Ocean Soul, it will make it that much harder for you to try and all in the comp of DFM, or excuse me, all in the comp of Sengoku. As now, this is one big Ezreal that is just throwing so much damage around. Xerath not able to keep up in pace with damage, as well as DFM's comp in general lacks a little bit of damage. That is sort of the trade-off that you get when you draft into a Senna.
Right. We mentioned at the beginning of the game that Senna really wanted to go lethality with this composition because they're just lacking so much damage. Granted, the tank build has actually saved her a few times this game, but all your damage coming from the Xerath, it's so easy to itemize against. The Ocean Souls are almost making your poke completely neglectable. How do you find a fight here?
That is the question, as Sengoku, knowing exactly that, are just going to all in onto Seros here, who walks a little bit too far forward. Flash from Blank, but he actually autos the wrong target. Pyrian going to flash there to help pick that one up. As now it looks like they will take the inhib at last. Maokai off to the top side cannot offer any peel on that account, while Opperman keeps Evi locked up on the bottom end of things. As the wave comes in, it looks like Sengoku are going to try and see if they can siege down any of these Nexus turrets.
We'll be able to. Main damage dealer is completely gone.
Right,
backing all the time they need.
Backing away now, they will just move over to the next inhib turret as Opperman escorts this wave in. W not going to land a big chunk from Pyrian there. Had he not been the Glacial build, he would have gone down very quickly there, as another inhibitor turret falls. Not long to follow is the inhibitor itself. Sengoku, 2 inhibitors in prime position to move towards this Baron. You have all the regen in the world. This is pretty much everything you could want and more if you are Sengoku. Kind of plays both the meta understanding to a T, but really playing their comp to a T. And this is sort of something that I really enjoy looking at when it comes to when it comes to just development of the meta, the elemental rift changes that came in at the beginning of this year are now, it feels like, finally being understood enough that both teams know what they need to be doing, and Sengoku, as it stands today, are the ones getting the better end of things.
Right. If you had Sengoku's coach sitting behind them as the game went forward, because draft coaches are gone the second the draft is finished. If he had written out a checklist of how to play the early game, how to play the transition into mid game, and handed it to his team, they couldn't have played it any more perfectly.
Definitely feels like it is now. They look to secure vision around the Baron here. And you can see here, just by the positioning of DFM, it doesn't even look like they really want to be in a position to contest this. Already having both of their quote-unquote carries off to the bottom end of things gives Sengoku free reign to walk into the jungle. DFM know that they cannot contest when they don't even have what is supposed to be 2 brunts of their damage. Now it looks like onto the top turret they go. They might not even make plays for the Baron, and realistically, they don't need to. They have all the pressure in the world to choose where they want to be. Xerath, of course, with 2 items, will burn down waves relatively quickly. And Sengoku are now going to make the call to run back to the Baron, as Opperman says, I'll stay here, I'll escort some waves in, I'll keep an eye on who's coming and who's staying.
Just too far.
Right, and
so difficult to walk up.
A 3-level advantage of Blank onto Steel means that's not even an option there. Baron going down, 40 seconds. You can take a reset back for this Ocean Soul. Feels like you're having your cake and eating it too.
Just going through the checklist one by one. Mid turret, mid inhib, bot turret, bot inhib, reset, top tier 2. Baron, Dragon, you can't spell it out any easier.
You really can't. John Madden would be proud of this one, as Sengoku are just going to walk onto the bottom end here, grab their Ocean Soul. This is pretty much all she wrote, but in a very different fashion from the last game. Sengoku handily won the last game, and it felt like they were asserting themselves as the better team. They were more cohesive. They played, but in this game, they not only had that same cohesion as a team, now they were just playing to their strengths. They knew exactly the limits of their comp, and DFM does not have a comp that can really challenge their weaknesses. And when Sengoku kind of lets DFM play into their hands, Sengoku is the one who's coming up on top. 10k gold lead, Ocean Soul, Baron, not much left to do in this one.
Right. It's interesting to see Sengoku transition from a bit of a counter strategy, right? They saw Rascal Jester's comp in the last game and drafted around that. This time, they had their plan that they wanted to execute on, and they did it perfectly. They attacked at the perfect points. They backed away when they knew they had to. And the control they've been given by doing that is insane.
Yeah, and Sengoku definitely making the best of this, it's sort of playing out the blue side exactly how you want, because a lot of times what we see throughout the drafts is if you're on the blue side, you're the ones who are throwing down the gauntlet first as far as what your comp is going to do. In this case, Sengoku kind of threw down the gauntlet, but that thought will have to wait, as now Gang are looking for their last stand to throw down, as Gang going forward, going very low. Blank is going to be the one aggressed on by Evi, who's looking for an opportunity. Blank walks back up, says, I'll fight it out while the rest of my team is winning. Steel is going to be kiting away. 1Q landed will be all he needs. Seros getting chased down. Pyrian, a plethora of flashes to be picking up on, making great use of that Nimbus cloak, as now Sengoku knocked down this one, and they say, hey, remember finals? We're a different team now.
Far too much. It was rendered a formality in the last 10 minutes, and they execute perfectly.
Right, no overextension. Sengoku by the book, start to finish. That's as good of a game as you can ask for this game 6, as now Sengoku find themselves 2-0 in the split, while DFM will have a chance to take back the next game, as their next game, Game 7, will be DFM versus SoftBank Hawks Gaming. We'll have to see how SHG match up to DFM, and if DFM can clean up a few of their drafting errors in this next series. Don't go anywhere, as we'll return shortly for that.
選手をピリアン選手、糸山選手から剥がしましたから、本当にいい動きでしたね。あそここうウーコンに回答しきった後前出てフォーカスを受けるような動きをしたのは、もうゾーイとエズリアルにウーコンのフォーカスを生かせないようにするためですから、完璧でしたね。
なんでしょうね、タンクチャンピオンじゃないんですけど、完全にタンクの動きいいですよね。
してましたね。デスダンスとブラッククリーバー、あとはなんといってもオーシャンソウル、
はい
この3つの影響力というのを有効活用しながら